All right, Claudia, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
I think Neil's ready to go.
Neil's
So
ready.
let's
We're all here.
do it. Here we go. Good Health by Claudia, podcast with me, Denny Schaefer, a production of Denny Radio. It is episode 23.
Yay!
Yay! Neil Levin from Now Foods is back. He's going to talk about different sweeteners and the effects on our body, natural sweeteners. We're going to run the gamut. Neil is the Senior Nutrition Education Manager for Now Foods. Welcome back. You're our first repeat guest, Neil. Welcome back.
Wow. Well, repeating as a guest is better than repeating after eating. So
then there's that. Now,
actually, wait a minute. The mushrooms.
Wasn't he the first guest
we
ever had?
But we did Host Defense. They've been with us twice. Neil was our first interview.
First interview guest.
And we talked about regulatory issues. We talked about DSHEA and,
awesome.
Awesome. How responsible our industry is with what they do. So
you look well and very studious with all those books behind you. Are those all, industry books, personal books, or mixture?
Yeah, these are health books from my library. I've actually got more shelves past there and more at the office. So this is my home office.
Very nice.
Very nice.
You
look relaxed.
Jim's got to build me a bigger bookcase because my bookcase is overflowing, and I've got books on chairs, floors, benches, tables. So nice shelves. Anyway, we're so happy you're here, Neil.
We are. We're going to talk about the different sweeteners. Claudia's brought a bunch we're going to show. Claudia, where would you like to start?
So where we're going to start is, we're asked all the time at the store. People want to understand all the different natural sweeteners. What's the best one to use? What are the glycemic, values? How much are they going to hit the pancreas? What's good to cook with? All these different things. So over the last, week or two, I had several customers. Apparently there was some new information that came out about erythritol, which I brought. Yes. And I said, well, I have not read the new study, but I will call my dear friend Neil. I'm sure he has. And so I called Neil, and he knew the scoop. So I said to him, you want to do the talk with me about sugar? So here we are. So we're grateful you're here. So Neil, first I want to talk about, let's talk about, we're going to talk about natural sweeteners. Right. We're going to talk about sugar alcohols. Some people think that they are artificial, like asulfame K, aspartame, sucralose, all these other things. So let's start with a simple understanding of natural sugars versus not natural.
Yeah, well, sugars are made in plants. They're actually made in plants as structural material. There's some artifacts of that in humans and other mammals. For example, glucosamine is glucose plus an amino acid to make this structural material in our joints. The glycoaminoglycans, the products that used to be known as mucopolysaccharides, sometimes they're called essential sugars, are also structural materials in the body. So we use sugars structurally in part as plants do primarily. And so plants make the sugars. They use photosynthesis. They are producing these things from compounds called terpenes. A lot of people have heard of terpenes in relation to the cannabis products. Yes. But terpenes are a class of compounds that the sugars are made from. So whether it's sucrose or fructose or the lohan, we're talking about terpene related things. The stevias, they're all related compounds. But they have different structures, different effects in the body, different absorption, different glycemic effects, different effects on pancreas and insulin, etc. So technically, the sugar alcohols occur in nature. They are not considered artificial sweeteners, though some of them may be synthetically produced, mimicking the synthetic processes in plants. And I want to mention, even fermentation is considered biosynthesis. Claudia and I, we talked about this a day or two ago. The plants are actually synthesizing these compounds in their own structures, just as we synthesize many compounds in our livers, and they are not considered, they actually are considered synthetic or biosynthetic, but they are not artificial. So the FDA does not class the sugar alcohols like xylitol, erythritol as artificial sweeteners because they do occur in nature, even though they might be synthetically produced. So I like to draw a firm line between artificial, meaning unnatural forms,
Yes.
and synthetic forms versus a synthetic process to produce them.
And that,
Because
when we
yeah,
talked about that yesterday or whatever, that was a really important, that was a great point you brought up, because when people hear the word synthetic, they're thinking of artificial. But what you clarified is when something is synthesized, which the body does, it's synthetic, but it's not artificial. So that was a really good point you brought up. I appreciate that.
yeah, another example would be the non-essential amino acids versus the essential amino acids.
Yes.
You have to consume essential amino acids. You cannot synthesize them in the bodies, but you can produce and synthesize the non-essential amino acids,
Yes.
which are still in natural form. So
Right.
the body recognizes natural forms. It does not recognize whether something is produced by synthesis in the body versus outside the body.
Yes. So today we're talking about natural sugars, not artificial.
Right, because
Right.
artificial
Yeah.
sweeteners like
So
aspartame, they've got a lot of negatives. They can actually stimulate an insulin response. We're not going to get deeply into that today, but they do have effects on blood sugar one way or another,
they
typically.
do. And I brought a couple books. I'm just going to show them. People want to learn about
Yeah.
artificial. Here, show this, please. This is a great book. It was written many years ago. It's helped a lot of people understand what aspartame is all about. So it's a great book if you want to learn that. And I also brought this one. These have been out for a while, but they've helped a lot of people understand a lot of things about synthetic sweeteners. So I just wanted to show those. So,
Yeah.
okay, now we're going to talk about good old fashioned what nature creates. So let's start with, so everyone understands what the glycemic index is. So let's do a simple understanding of that.
Well, there are different glycemic indexes just to confuse everybody
Well, we'll
with
keep it
different
simple.
scales.
Yeah.
So, you have to pick a scale and use it typically. Like glucose or dextrose can be 100 on one scale. It can be 70 on another scale. So, it's not an absolute one single scale. But what
No,
it's
but
intended to do is to measure the effects on the blood sugar and insulin response to taking a single food. Now, the problem with that also is that it's not measuring a combination in a meal. It's
right,
measuring a single food just to estimate what it does in the body. And
right,
of course, when you eat foods together, you have fiber that might slow the digestion and absorption and the spikes in blood sugar after a meal, those kind of effects.
right.
So those are not counted in the glycemic index. It's kind of a crude tool that you can relatively look at the effects of single sweeteners or single foods and what they're likely to do in terms of blood sugar.
And I always remind people, when you eat an apple, when you eat a whole fruit, the glycemic value, because the fiber in the fruit is going to be lower than if you drink, let's say, apple juice. That has a different, it's going to spike, it's going to hit the pancreas harder. So basically, that's what we're talking about. The glycemic index is a general understanding of a particular food. How much does it make the pancreas work?
Right.
Correct?
And also, that's a good example. I use that kind of example also.
Yes.
The other thing I say, I could eat an orange. I can drink the juice of 6 oranges or something, and there's none of the fiber in there to slow its intake. I'm not
Right.
chewing to increase satiety either. So, so there's other issues involved in chewing, eating, combining
But
foods,
we got
whole
to keep it
foods.
simple for
Yeah, yeah,
most people.
yeah.
Most people are just learning to understand this. And most people know the original, well, I don't know if it's the original, but the one we saw years ago, it was based on 0 to 100, 100 being glucose. So
Right.
that's the one that we were taught on. But at any rate, so let's talk about, so let's start with erythritol. Because
Yeah,
as I said, a lot of people read this, heard about this article, and it said something about cardiac issues from erythritol. So you read it, and so what's the
Yeah,
scoop on that?
yeah. The authors kind of missed the point. They looked at studies ending about 5 years ago, where they were measuring blood compounds, and erythritol was one of the ones they found. Now, looking at 5-10 years ago, erythritol was not widely used in foods or sweeteners. And today it's used as a standalone, but it's mostly used as a base to put in things like stevia or monk fruit. These highly concentrated plant sweeteners that might be 100 to 300 times as sweet as sugar. And to
Yes.
bulk it up enough to make a packet, and to actually measure it, you
Right.
add a base. We don't add it to our stevia products. We do add it to our monk fruit products. It's less than a gram. It's very little, but that was not widely done 5 years ago. What it turns out that these authors did not mention in their study, and we didn't hear on the news, is that erythritol is actually produced as a normal artifact of carbohydrate metabolism in the body, that we are actually producing erythritol in our body. And erythritol does occur
That's
in
very
small
interesting.
amounts in very ripe fruits like berries.
Yes.
So you can get tiny amounts from the foods, but you're actually making a substantial amount from the sugar. And what they found was that the higher levels of erythritol were associated with, not causative, but associated with increased clotting factors for about a day or so after these levels were measured. What they didn't measure, and they should have clarified and screened out, was that eating regular sugars would do the same thing. It also increases clotting factors, and that
Yes.
erythritol itself, if you consume it in studies, actually helps with endothelial function, blood pressure, and some other issues involved with cardiovascular health, where it actually provides benefits. So they kind of ignored
Interesting.
the basis of all this and focused on, we found this thing that was probably caused by people eating normal sugars, and blamed it on this compound that's a normal metabolite of sugar metabolism, rather than people consuming erythritol. So
Right.
it was very misleading. It got tons of headlines because it's counterintuitive, as these things do. And even
Right.
the researchers
0
didn't
calories.
delve into this.
So I have a question as the novice here, and just trying to learn more and absorb. It says the erythritol is 70% as sweet as sugar, and yet when I look on the nutrition facts, it says 0 calories. How can something that tastes sweet have 0 calories?
Good question.
That's because erythritol is almost 95% absorbed when you eat it. Unlike some of the other sugar alcohols that pass through the GI tract and tend to cause water accumulation,
Yes.
watery stools, loose stools, it doesn't tend to do that. But then almost all of it is excreted from the body without being metabolized into energy. So if you can't convert it into energy and it's excreted intact, then it is not something that is caloric. I've seen estimates 0.2 calories per gram or something like that, but it's not something that you're going to have a significant amount of calories from, because you can't burn it in the body.
Okay, there you go.
There you
Got
go.
my
There's your
question
answer. That was a good question.
Yeah.
Great answer. And a lot of people like the taste of erythritol. Now, I don't, I've never baked with it. So, people have to learn how to bake, because when you use these different sugars, it's changing the consistency of a
Right.
baked good. But erythritol, so this is what it say, 70% as sweet as sugar?
Yep.
70%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's the reason why you often see it used as a base in things like stevia or monk fruit. And like I said, we don't use it in our stevia products, but we do use it in our monk fruits products. But a tiny bit as a base, because it's basically non-caloric. That 0.2 calories per gram, you have to drop the calories to 0 by FDA labeling regulations if it's less than 5 calories. So that 0 is an approximation.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
why we're seeing it in some different protein bars that are coming out on the market, right?
Right. It'll
Probably.
taste sweet. They'll usually add a second sweetener to it to spike
Yes.
it a little. You'll often see stevia, for example, in these bars, or something
Yeah.
like that, to add more sweetness.
but we're definitely seeing more products with it in. So the next I want to talk about is xylitol.
Yeah.
This is an interesting sugar alcohol.
Yes.
Go ahead, Neil. Tell
Yeah.
us about xylitol.
Well, xylitol was used previously to erythritol, and erythritol has taken over some of the xylitol business. And the reason why is xylitol is about 2.4 calories per gram. So it's a lot more calories that you're actually burning. But it's 1-to-1 sweetness with sugar. So
That's
it's a
why a
good
lot of people
1-to-1
like it.
substitute. But
Yeah.
when you start getting up to about an ounce, like around 30 grams,
Yeah.
35 grams, people start getting these GI issues because the stuff that's not absorbed
Right.
will tend to pass through and attract moisture and cause those issues. You know, gas, maybe a watery or loose stool in higher doses. You
In
know, some of
higher
the
doses.
yeah,
It's
some of the
usually
sugar alcohols, sorbitol will do that at around 10 grams. So xylitol will take 3 or 4 times as much to cause that, and erythritol causes almost none of that because it's so completely absorbed.
the other thing with xylitol that is important to tell everyone, it's very, very toxic to dogs. We actually have it posted at our shelf. You never want to give xylitol to a dog because it can cause dehydration, I believe. Isn't that what it is? Because it
Yeah,
forces too much water out.
they can't digest and
They
absorb it
can't,
well, and we do have warnings on our products containing xylitol.
yeah. But the other interesting part of the history of xylitol, because we have it in a lot of, it's in mouthwashes and toothpaste, and so it tends to help clear up bacteria in the mouth. I
Yeah,
think the dental community used it way back in the 50s, I believe. I had a dentist tell me that, and he was thrilled to see, this was several years ago, that we had so many products, gum, mouthwash, toothpaste with xylitol, and so the dental associations used it for a long time.
yeah, xylitol, I mean, for oral hygiene is not considered consumption. You're supposed to spit out almost all of it out. So it's not really added into glycemic effect or anything like that.
Right.
But xylitol does not encourage the growth of cavities. It doesn't support the growth of those organisms in the mouth. In fact, it discourages the growth of organisms in the mouth that are undesirable.
Yes.
And so it's considered somewhat antiseptic. And at doses around 25%, which is the amount we use in our toothpaste, it is actually considered to be discouraging of dental cavities. And erythritol actually works better than xylitol in that regard, by the way.
Really?
It's actually stronger effect for that.
I didn't
So,
realize that.
yeah.
And your toothpaste is what I use. I've used it for, I don't know what year you guys came out with it, but that's what we've always used. It's a great toothpaste. I should have brought it to show it, but I didn't think of that. So now again, this is a 1-to-1 ratio of sweetness. So a lot of people that are really sugar addicted, this is a nice way to transition. But again, if you eat a piece of gum or whatever with a little xylitol, no big deal. We have a gentleman that he's used xylitol for years, and then he told me recently he was at a birthday party and he ate 3 pieces of cake.
Wow.
And he got digestive distress.
Gee, I wonder why.
I said, well,
3.
it might have been, the xylitol and everything else. But at any rate, it's a very nice product. So it's another thing to consider. Next, okay, let's talk about stevia.
Yeah. Well, stevia is a plant originally from South America. It's now grown all over the world. And it's considered to be about 100, 200 times as sweet as sugar. This compound, these steviosides. Now, the steviosides and riboside, that family of about a dozen compounds, they have different characteristics. Usually a mixture is used. The Reb A, one of the single compounds, is sometimes used, which is the strongest sweet spike, but it has kind of an odd taste. So the blend, the full spectrum ones tend to taste better. We actually sell a stevia that's been extracted in the presence of amylase, and we're adding in the presence of tapioca. where it's a glycosylated stevia sides. It reduces that licorice-like aftertaste that's typical to stevia products and
Yep.
some of the metallic mouthfeel that might be common in the straight stevia products.
Yeah.
And it is GRAS. It is FDA registered as a food.
Generally
There's great
considered safe.
safety,
Yes.
great safety profile. We use a certified organic material, by the way. So all of our stevia, as we call it, better stevia, is certified organic. And you could buy the straight extract. You can buy it in packets with rice maltodextrin. You can buy it in an organic version that's using an inulin type base. But it's all certified organic material. It's non-GMO. It tastes sweet, but it's basically non-caloric. And
Right.
if you need to bulk it up, we'll use rice maltodextrin typically, or organic inulin, depending on the use. And we also have liquid versions that use either glycerin or alcohol. Again, on the organic versions, that would be organic alcohol, that kind of thing.
Yes. And people love, especially the flavored stevias.
Right.
But years ago, when it first came to the market and people were first learning about stevia, and we would tell them, just I'd tell them, take a toothpick. If you're going to sweeten your tea or your coffee, use the tip of a toothpick, put it in the stevia liquid, put it in your coffee. It was enough to sweeten the whole thing. So it's funny when people come in and say, "Oh, I don't like the taste of that stuff." It's always because they used way too much of it.
Yeah, they get an aftertaste.
And they get that bitter
Yeah,
aftertaste.
that's not good.
So you're saying that's when they only use the part of one of the components of stevia when that happens.
The Reb A has a very strong sweet spike, but it does not taste very good.
Right. So when you use the whole component of the stevia, then it helps the flavor a little bit. It doesn't give that aftertaste. Is that right?
Yeah, and when we extract it using the amylase enzyme in the process, that also removes some of the unpleasant flavors or the aftertaste. And that digestion would happen in your stomach anyway. We're just letting it happen before it hits your mouth and your palate and your taste buds, rather than you having to taste it and then removing those compounds.
Right. Right. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, people love these. You guys make the French vanilla, and I forget what other. There's another flavor. We've got it on the shelf. Anyway, people love the flavors, and the packets are very nice because they can just take them with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a tiny scoop in the pure extract powder. It's like a 32nd of a teaspoon, so it doesn't take much. It's very strong.
It's very strong. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, years ago when people were trying to use stevia to bake a cake. Well,
Yeah.
it's hard to do that. That's why.
Yeah, because you don't know how much to put in.
That's why there's actual cookbooks on how to bake with stevia, because it changes the whole texture, consistency of a baked good, because you don't have the granulation of the sugar.
Yeah, if you're taking out, say, a cup of sugar and putting in a teaspoon or less of stevia, you obviously have to adjust the dry ingredient ratio.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I've been using stevia for years on your recommendation, and I absolutely love it. So that's
you like
a great
French
product.
vanilla?
I
There
do.
You go.
I love it.
Okay, next we're going to do monk fruit, because this is really.
I'm curious about monk fruit.
Yeah, it's really becoming popular.
Yes.
We've had it. I don't know. How long has it been around? We haven't had it that long. A couple years? I don't know.
Yeah.
How long has it been around?
2-3 years we've had the products.
Yeah.
We mostly have liquids and packets. It is popular because people perceive it's a better taste than the stevia, or people who tried stevia, they don't like it.
Yes.
Maybe they haven't tried our brand, but they don't like stevia.
Well, and we were out of your brand, so I grabbed a different one. So sorry about that. But
doesn't matter.
You showed this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the first time I saw this, we were selling cough syrups in the 1980s in our health food store that used Lohan or Lohan Gua.
Yes.
As the sweetener. So it was used actually as the syrup as a cough syrup in those days, and it still is as a traditional Chinese medicine.
That was a great product. We sold it for years. It was like in a honey base.
Right.
Lohan. It was in a honey base. It worked beautifully. I don't even know if we can even get it anymore, but we sold it for years. So what is the glycemic value on monk fruit? Is very low. What is it? 0.
There is no glycemic effect from monk fruit. It is sweet. It is considered to be extremely sweet, something like 200-300 times as sweet as sugar. So you don't need much.
Right.
Again, we're selling it typically in diluted forms to make it more measurable and usable, especially in packets.
Yes. So I did bring some nice local honey. We've got some local farmers, beekeepers. This particular one is David. I forget his last name. I'm sorry, but he does a great job. Anyway, let's talk about honey, because a lot of people are using honey for a lot of things. Of course, we always encourage them. It needs to be raw, not heated, not pasteurized, because it changes the value of it. But the beauty of honey is all the enzymes that are in it. So
well, there's
talk
more
to
than
us about honey.
enzymes. Different honeys have different properties. I used to be a beekeeper myself, so
Oh, I didn't
I
know that.
studied this quite a bit. I had my own honey business.
Oh, wow.
So depending on what flowers the bees are getting the nectar from, it has a different taste and quality. One time my bees harvested cotton fields and it tasted like orange blossom honey. It crystallized in about a week because it was raw, but it was soft and creamy like a spreadable honey. And when I
Yes.
would put it on my wife's homemade whole wheat bread and make like a honey and peanut butter sandwich to take to work, by the time I ate it at lunch, it actually caramelized the whole wheat bread because it would start digesting
Oh,
it.
wow.
It was
Isn't
very
that
delicious. Tasted
interesting?
like
From the
candy
enzymes.
from the enzymes. Yeah.
From the enzymes. Very
But
cool.
honey is a mixture of fructose and they call it galactose, but it's kind of like sucrose. So it is a lower glycemic index than pure sugar because of the fructose content. And the
Yes.
fructose content will vary in there. The highest fructose content is in the Tupelo honey, which is known to be the best one for people with blood sugar issues because of the higher fructose level that allows it to not spike the blood sugar as much.
Very good. That's good to know.
Now, according to doctors who have researched the effects of fructose, you want to keep the total fructose intake in the diet below 500 calories a day to avoid problems with fatty liver and things like that, insulin
Yes.
sensitivity issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you could get that much in a big gulp or something. So,
Right.
watching the high fructose corn syrup, it might be 42% fructose or something like that, but that fructose adds up and can cause problems in high doses. Honey, you're
Yes.
not going to typically use those high doses, so it's not really
Right.
an issue. Honey is a great health food, though.
Yeah, honey is wonderful. Excuse me. And we have people that do the oh, I forgot the
Well, we
never
have the
mind.
Manuka honey, which is from New Zealand. We have a
Yes.
version of that too.
That's
And
what
it's
thank
rated
you.
in terms of its antiseptic qualities,
Yes.
its ability to inhibit bacterial growth or mold growth. And in
Yes.
fact, honey has been used for over thousands of years as a natural preservative in breads or other foods.
Yeah. So Manuka, that's what I was trying to think of.
Right.
Thank you for saying that. So Manuka is a wonderful honey also, and we
Yes.
sell a lot of it. And there's, as you said, there's different grades. And we actually have some docs that refer people in for the high level, it says right on the label, medical grade Manuka. So it has some beautiful healing properties as well.
And that's a great one if you have like a sore throat, you're trying to soothe it or something. Manuka honey as a base for whatever you're doing. If you're making a homemade cough syrup or something, is a great
Yes.
idea.
And a lot of people use it in their tea. They use it in their coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice product. So, all right, next. And again, we were out of some of your things. So I had to grab different companies. This is agave. A lot of, a lot of people have different opinions about agave. I've never really seen an issue with agave, but it's cactus sweetener. So tell us about it.
Yeah, agave we get from the blue agave plant, which is the same source we get inulin, the starch. And it's very similar to the starch. It's basically chains of fructose. And they get it by using either heat or enzymes to produce this. We have certified organic agave nectar, light or dark. It's very low glycemic. The glycemic index varies between 10 and 19. Anywhere below 55 is considered low.
Yes.
So it is on the low end of the scale. because it's these fructose chains, and fructose tends to be low on glycemic index. So it is basically a liquid fructose sweetener in essence.
It's a nice product. Of course, a lot of people, they know agave because of tequila.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Can you make tequila? You got something going.
The nectar before it's concentrated is exactly what they make tequila from.
Oh. Say that again. Say it again.
The pure nectar, they take the agave, it's like a big root bulb, like a tuber.
Yes.
They chop off the leaves. It looks kind of like aloe, and they chop off the leaves. It's like a gigantic aloe. There's a big ball there that they chop off, that they then crush and get the juice. And the Spanish they were fermenting anything they could find to try to make alcohol when they came to this new world. Right. And they created tequila by doing that.
Oh, wow. That's I didn't know that.
I'll have to put some of this in my tequila, see what that does.
Yeah.
All right, we're starting to run out of time. So if we want to get through these.
So we're going to, Neil, I brought allulose. You want to say something about allulose? This is the new one now. Everybody's coming in for allulose.
Yeah.
And again, we were out of yours, so I had to grab it.
Yeah, we're actually coming out with organic allulose estimated in May. So a couple months off. Allulose is a new sweetener. It is considered zero glycemic index. It's something that is like almost a mirror image of fructose. So the body will absorb it, but doesn't quite know how to metabolize it. So it ends up being excreted. So that's the story. It tastes sweet. It is not any glycemic index. It's about 70% as sweet as sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, if you're using it as sprinkling some in a drink, you might use 1 1/3 teaspoons instead of a teaspoon, for example, something like that, to get the same sweetness as a teaspoon of sugar. But, we do want to have an organic version. It can be made from corn. I think the organic one we're getting will be made from guar gum or something like that, like a tapioca source.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I appreciate that. I hope everybody enjoyed an overview of the natural sweeteners. And Neil, thank you for being here to discuss that with us.
There's nothing sweeter than you, Claudia. So, I had to be here.
What a suck up.
Oh, I tell you, thanks.
I love it. But I think for a lot of people that are watching this, I don't think they realize there's such choices out there instead of just sugar. I mean, you've got all these different that we just gave to you. There's probably more we didn't get to, but there are alternatives out there if sugar is an issue for you in your diet.
Yeah.
And especially blood sugar and spiking and all that other stuff. There's a lot of great products that are out there that you can use in its place.
There are other alternatives. We sell coconut sugar, date sugar, maple syrup, there's many other versions of sugar available.
Yeah, I brought coconut sugar. We're just running out of time, but I'm thrilled that people are exploring different natural sugars. That's what's important. And I always remind people, do it for the children, because the children are struggling. Our American children, they have been so junked out and they're sugared up, and it's affecting their health. I mean, we're getting children in with heart problems and blood sugar problems, and they're obese and all these things. It's very sad. Plus, it's affecting the way their cognitive function. Go natural. And Neil, thank you so much. I love you very much. Denny and I are grateful you're with us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. Have a great
day. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there he is. Man, that was great. Neil Levin from Now Foods. Man, what a great lineup of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the stevia is staying with me, and the honey, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I like honey. And then when Neil talked about the honey and peanut butter sandwich, I'm like, ooh, that sounds like lunchtime to me. So great job, episode 23. And like always, Claudia, I'm going to leave you with the last words.
It's always keep the faith. I just remind everybody, keep the faith. Just shine your light. Just put your heart out there. Just we all need more kindness and sincerity and generosity and just simple things. So, and for me, all of this natural health it's all part of the process of loving ourselves, nourishing ourselves, and sharing that nourishment with others. So shine on, everybody, and keep the faith. Thank you for joining us. Peace.